The other day, rape and sexual abuse against adults and children happen in the society. Survivors live their lives with the bitter memory of these horrific experiences. For them, life is never the same, as those who live to tell their stories often have psychological challenges and change in behavioral patterns. But support from family and society go a long way in bringing healing for victims. Most often than not, abuses are well known to their victims. They could be relatives, neighbors, mentors, and respected individuals in the community, meaning just about anyone could be a perpetrator. As a Sexual Harassment Awareness Month comes to an end, efforts to end this scourge must continue. Joining me for more on this is social commentator Smart Akpejoye. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And via Skype from Bonny Island, Port Harcourt, is gender advocate Tessie Biobaku. Good morning, Tessie. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thanks for having me on board.
All right, I'll begin with you, Tessie. As the Sexual Awareness Month comes to a close, recent happenings show that the campaign must continue. And then again, the question is, are people really, truly getting informed with regards to sexual harassment and its awareness?
Well, once again, thanks for having me on board. People are getting well informed, and that's why, to an extent, we are having such situations where people are now speaking out. The silence culture that was like the norm before is gradually phasing out. But it saddens one that when we look at the data from the traffic agency, Nigerian Traffic Agency, we're meant to know that between 2019 and 2020, we had more than last year, that's 2020, between January and May, we had more than 700 reports with regards to sexual, a form of sexual abuse, and about 33 or about 30, were convicted. So we need to we need to escalate this the more. We don't need to keep quiet because, whatever has to do with sexual abuse, molestation, assault, affects all of us. So there's need for us, to be deliberate in making sure that perpetrators with regards to these acts, are brought to justice is served, and they are made to face the consequences of their actions.
Right. Let's bring the conversation to the studio, Smart. Creating safe spaces for women and ensuring that this space is devoid of every form of sexual harassment, molestation, and assault is seemingly a Herculean task, especially where we find that it is usually persons that people trust and they know, or perhaps family members are the ones found to be perpetrators of these acts.
First, once again, thank you for bringing up this topic and thank you for bringing me. First, when you're talking about creating a conducive space, there is no conducive space for whoever wants to rape or sexual assault.
Creating safe spaces for women or people who are being assaulted. I'm saying that perhaps it's looking seemingly difficult because of the persons who are involved. We find out oftentimes that there are people who are trusted by the victims.
Yes. In the first place, we will probably thank all the NGOs that are putting pressure on government to even talk about it, that look, the moment let us enhance our laws to make it very, very stringent that if you commit this offense, you won't go scot-free. And that is why you must always commend Lagos again for being on top. When you look at sexual abuse, whatever, they have a section in Alausa. Yes. They've created sections in all different police stations where if you have this case, they will take it there and perhaps they will just say, look, we are transferring it to Panti. We don't want to get involved in this. Now, when you look at it again, is that most often time when it happens, because it's somebody very close to the family, they tend to want to shield whatever, and okay, let's make it an home affairs. But gradually, that culture again is going off. He said, no, I won't accept it. If this is my brother, if this is my husband, no, I will take it out. So to a large extent, that gap, they are gradually closing that gap that, look, the moment you commit this crime, there is no safe haven for you. There is no safe space for you. You must face it. So, and that is why, again, we cannot stop. We cannot say because there is a program, we have an awareness month or whatever, thereafter we should go back again and relax. No. We must continually make it a topic. We must continually make it an agenda that we must talk about it in our religious home. We must talk about it at the various schools. We must talk about it in the various societies. We must talk about it. And again, let us again even begin to look at how can it be prevented. I will quickly give you a scenario. Sometime we had a case, and the civil society, we rushed to the place somewhere in Ikeja. When we got there, so the person was detained at this area here for wherever. So when we got there, so I was not talking to the guy. I said, why did you do this? I said, did you do it? He said, yes. I said, why did you do this? He said, oh, guy, I don't drink. And I said, but me too, I drink. He said, no, but they can't drink. So he was not saying that he was even on drug. You understand? So when you see people they go into excessive drug, excessive alcohol. So in that process, nothing looks too big, nothing looks too small, nothing looks immoral to them.
But there are some who do not even use any of this, abuse substances, and they still perpetrate this art.
Yes, I will come to there. You see, nobody in its normal sense will do that. I want to tell you.
Really?
Yes. Do you know why? Yeah. It is not that you have a mental problem, you have a mental issue. If you don't, you see, how often do we go to psychiatric hospital for checkup? I've never done it. I'm not sure normally anybody has done it, because you just say that, oh, I don't have any psychological challenge. But the simple truth is that when you look at this, when you really sit down and look at these people, you know that they have psychological challenges.
Really?
Nobody will in his right sense will just wake up and just say, oh, I want to do a child of 6 years, 7 years. Nobody. Anybody that does that, honestly, go and check. Something must be, that person has a psychological problem, either depression. If it's not
the way the person wants to relieve himself of
exactly, they want to do something that will just make them relieve themselves of that, whatever. So what we should look at again is that this is where we must advocate again that, honestly, we must try a system whereby we go for this thing, psychiatric check. But we don't really do that. You must go for psychiatric tests at least, if not twice in a year, at least once in a year. Thereafter again, we must look at again the high rate of unauthorized on drugs that we used again is killing.
All right, I need to get back to Tessie because I want her to react to what he just said. Tessie, can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you loud and clear.
He says, my guest in the studio is saying that there is either a psychological reason behind why certain persons perpetuate this act. And some even perhaps might be abusing substances, that no person in their right mind actually can do things like this. Do you share the same view?
Well, to an extent, I share the same view. Rapists, pedophiles, they are all, it's more of a mental disorder. But is that an excuse for you to want to see, even though we're looking at 6, 7, some girl child, some boy child, they've been abused even right from maybe when they were 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And like rightly what he said, the sad part about this sexual abuse, molestation, rape and all that, it's perpetrated by people, yes, that a lot of people that we trust, family members, even, we're caught up in a society where you even see fathers that are supposed to protect their children, raping their child, or maybe sexually abusing them. But where we should look at now is to build our children up in such a way that they must be able to speak out, because perpetrators of these acts are cowards. They threaten the children
words,
that
please, choice of words, please, because we are on national TV.
My apologies.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So they threaten these children, that they are going to do a lot of things to them, and that makes these children to be weak enough. It weakens them for them to be able to speak out. But what we should do now, if we have to look at the children that can speak out, how would a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old be able to speak out and say, I'm being molested?
Right.
So that makes us understand that, look, communal efforts needs to be, it's not a collective effort, that we all as one must, take that decision, take that responsibility to make sure that this is dealt with. You see, as a mother, and I have daughters, and I have brothers, and to see this, the girl child, 1 out of 3 or 4 girl child has gone through one form of molestation, one form of sexual abuse and violence, even before the age of 18. So how do we deal with this? It's becoming too much. And that's part of what is causing this, is because, our culture. And that's why you see we're still talking about gender-based violence. We need to really address this situation. Our culture makes it feel as if, especially if it's a family member, let's protect them, let's not do this, let's not do that. But you see, and that's why you see, it is so wrong when people will ask and say, where is the video evidence? When they will ask and say that, did it really happen? Thereby even making the rapists look as if they are the victims. Look at the case of Tina. Look at the case of Uwa. Not Tina, Uwa, that was raped while she was in the church reading. Look at Barakat Bello, that was in her house and she was raped and killed. Are we talking about Elizabeth, the one in Benue, that a father and son raped from 9 years to 13 years until she died? Are we talking about Jennifer in Kaduna that was gang raped by 5 people? For every child that the survivors, for them to speak out, and then you start questioning their truth, you're making them relieve that pain. The trauma that they go through, whoever perpetrates this act might look at it that after all it was just 5-10 minutes, it was a one-off, but it's a lifetime trauma.
Absolutely.
For those that have gone through it, they relive it every day, even by mere hearing the name of anybody that bears a name, that bears such name, that the person that defiled them. So it's time that we deal with it. Now, putting emotion aside, there's need for our laws to be reformed, to fit into our reality. You don't just do something and feel. I heard when he said something about Lagos State, doing things. I applaud them. But it's not just about putting things in place. Have you activated the necessary things to be done in regards to making sure that these perpetrators, they face the consequences of what they have done? You're destroying the life of our children. You're stabbing us as mothers, as fathers. The pain is too much.
Right.
It needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be done now.
All right, Tessie, let's quickly get back to the studio. I understand that pain, that emotion, especially coming from a mother. And so the issue that also is a major concern for a lot of persons is the road to justice. It's quite a tortuous one where they're asking for proof. And in cases like this, it's quite a challenge. The burden of proof is quite a challenge.
You see, just like in every crime, there must be an evidence that a crime was committed. So, of course, if anybody could allege that, I was raped, I was sexually assaulted, they probably want to find out, look, in the course of investigation, there must be some evidence. Where there are no evidence, perhaps it's not weighty enough. But however, going beyond that, let us begin to like I talk about Lagos having enough. I think there was a time there is a phone number where you can call if you are sexually molested or whatever. If you know of somebody that's a pedophile or whatever, that you could make a report line. I'm sure after some time now, that line is no more trending. Nobody even knows if that line still exists. This is where we must constantly talk about all these things. This is where we must constantly, again, tell the people, let the people know that, look, this is a serious crime. That if you do it, I think, like I've said, Lagos is doing quite a very good job, because sometimes I will just say on radio, like on radio. That is why, again, this law must be domesticated in all the 36 states and including Abuja.
Yes.
Apart from that, again, you see, there is no way we'll talk about failure and all these things that will not talk about the failure of the national orientation agencies. These are some of their job. Look, if the National Orientation Agency is supposed to be a vibrant government agency, but
driving
today,
the conversation around this.
So driving all these things, but you see then that perhaps they are even the worst. You don't even know who their DG is. You don't even know who their local government director is. That is to tell you, and you don't even know if there was even fund for them. If they've been funding for them in all the budgets for the Ministry of Information. So there is a lot of problem. And that is why, again, sometimes if we talk about it again, you see, there is no way we not talk about back to the government again. You see, those agencies that are supposed to play leading role.
Government cannot do it alone. It has to work with agencies.
Yes.
But then the level of commitment of government to this is
a major concern.
Yeah.
And again, this is where, again, the government, again, must bring in all these, perhaps, multinational companies. You see, they declare fantastic profits. Big profit, they will say, declaring hundreds of billions. For goodness sake, what is your CSR to the society where you are making all these billions from? Is it not absurd that they will just say company just because you brew drink and you are making almost about 136 billion? Then what is your CSR? You see, these are areas where, look, there is nothing wrong if we fund various agencies that will perhaps drive the awareness. Because in the first place, if there is constant awareness, sometimes if you want to commit it, you say, look, I heard on radio, I heard on TVC that if I do this, I might likely do this. And again, when a crime is committed, after being reported, let it be followed up to the to the point of justice. Say, look, the person that did this 3 months ago.
And that's my concern, why I talked about the road to justice, Tessie. It has always been a burden, especially where you talk about the aspect of proof in cases like this. How much of a challenge does that constitute on the road to justice? And also you hear victims talk about the fact that they have to pay certain monies to security agencies to carry out investigations. It's similarly a complex situation here, Tessie.
Yeah, I think there is need to, it's quite painful discussing this. There is need to put a structure in such a way that, you can't have a fire incident and then you call a teacher. Yes, we know most times, the first place of call when there's incidents like this is the police station. How much of structure is in place, measures to tackle incidents like this? It's not just about the police commissioner just coming to say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. There should be an area in the police, reforming the police in such a way that when you have incidents like this, there are people they are going to deal with it. Just like my other colleague in the studio said, in regards to going to having psychiatric evaluations and all that. We should have people like that, therapy and all that. And, it's so sad that getting justice becomes a lot of obstacles on the way, because you see this thing about, when you don't live an experience, which is not an excuse, you don't understand it, you might just even push it aside. I know there was a case of a lady that actually went to report a case, and right there she was even threatened, that there was not such things. She was even saying it, I think, on the social media, that maybe whoever was the authority they reported to, maybe the person had to take something and all that. So the question now is, what are those things that could be in place for this to be taken care of? Like, yes, we know that naturally it comes with, the law, and that's why there's need to have, a proper police structure in place, reform that can tackle this incidents such as domestic abuse, molestation, and all that. And then there should be that trust. Because it's not just having this thing in place. I appreciate that, yes, Lagos State has this in place. Rivers State that I am residing also has it in place. Be rest assured that every state has it. But the thing is, have they been taking the right action? Now, it's high time that we don't just wait for the government. I guess we have to now be the ones to make sure that we push the government in one way or the other.
But we keep saying these things over and over again, Tessie. So what are we not doing to push the government? We saw the number of cases that came up last year during the pandemic. Why aren't we pushing the government? Why didn't we push the government at the time? Why didn't we push the government then?
Cases between, we had more than 700 cases between January and May. To the extent, as at that time, our president even said we should declare a state of emergency in regards to what was going on. Even the United Nations Secretary General actually even said that, he remarked that it's not just an epidemic again, it's a shadow pandemic. For us for this to be termed a shadow pandemic, it tells you how serious this is. Yes, I know that I think the more reason we need to amplify our voice, the more, and then there should be that integration of communal efforts to deal with this thing. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Tessie Biobako, gender advocate located in Bonny Island, Port Harcourt. Thank you for your time. Smart Akpejoye, your
thanks for having me on board.
Yeah, your final word quickly before we let you go.
My final word is that we must all be involved. It's a crime. Is that we must all be involved. From the parents, first, there are parental failures if it concerns the children. Again, there is a societal failure when it concerns adults. Again, there is government failure when it concerns taking
implementation. All right. So we'll leave the conversation here. Social commentator Smart Akpejoye, thank you for speaking with us.